Da-na-na-na, 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 da-na-na-na. It's the Addams Family sequel. It's definitely not a prequel. It's also not the equal of the original TV show. Hey everyone, this is David Starr from Watch or Pass. I'm here to talk to you about the Addams Family 2, which is coming to theaters and on demand on October 1st, 2021. If you just want to know the recommendation, I'm going to start with that. I think this is actually a pass. I don't really think this is a movie that you need to see. But to be fair, my kids enjoyed it. They enjoyed some aspects of it. They thought it was funny. So your kids might like it, but me personally, I didn't really enjoy the movie, and you'll find out why. But for those that just want to know, that's my recommendation. Anyways, this is the sequel to the Addams Family movie that came out, I don't know, like 3 years ago, roughly. Time has been weird with the pandemic, but it is an animated reboot of, I guess, the TV show that became the beloved movies and then had an animated movie, and now this is the sequel to the animated movie. So it's a computer-generated Addams Family movie. The animation is really good. It has all the characters that you know and love. And in the first movie, it kind of dealt with the Addams moving into this neighborhood and kind of trying to find acceptance. This movie deals with some internal conflicts in the family itself. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the story, 3 things I liked, 3 things I didn't like, and then talk a little about the ending. So if you don't want spoilers, don't watch this video. Go either read the review on watcherpass.com or watch the movie, then come back. So in this movie, you have Wednesday's kind of the main character in this film. Wednesday is starting to become a little discontent with her family and her place in the family. She feels like maybe she's a little bit smarter than them, and basically her entire town, which, to be fair, she is. But the film kind of deals with her trying to figure out why she doesn't fit in, and then it introduces early on this thought that maybe she's not an Addams, maybe she was switched at birth with someone else, and so the film has aspects of her trying to figure that out, but then also because of some of this discontent, the family decides to go on a road trip across America to reacquaint themselves with each other, bond again, and so you get this kind of road trip aspect, and also you have this issue of Wednesday kind of just feeling like she doesn't belong, and then they're also pursued by this mysterious pair of people. So that is roughly kind of the story of this film. The first thing I loved about this film is the animation. The animation is really fun. Like, you got this really good translation of the original TV show and then the movie characters onto the animated screen. And you also have some beautiful animation. Like, you've got all the characters kind of rendered in a cartoonish but very recognizable way that lets them also have some of the weirder, creepier aspects of the Addams Family pop in as well. Like, the house is super imposing. And the animation, it's just beautiful. It's really well done. Like, you can recognize all the characters, you can recognize all your favorites, and then they introduce a few new characters. And because of the road trip aspect of this film, you do get to see some very interesting locales that are rendered, in beautiful animation as well. So it's not just, the first movie was more of just the Addams in this town, so you didn't get much variety in what you saw. You got the kind of the creepy house, and then you got the town around it. But here, they're going to a few different places, and so you get to see an array of different locations. The second thing I liked are the locales, and this is a double-edged sword. I'll go into that in the things I didn't love, but the locales actually were nice. It was a nice variety, and you got to see some very different places. So I think they went to Niagara Falls, they went to Death Valley, they went to San Antonio for some reason, they went to Sausalito. So you got to see a couple different places, and you got to experience them all and see the very different animation styles that kept it fresh and interesting. And the last thing I liked is the voice cast. The voice cast is very good. Like, you have just an all-star list in this film. You've got Oscar Isaac as Gomez, you've got Charlize Theron as Morticia, you've got Chloë Grace Moretz as Wednesday, Snoop Dogg as Cousin It. You got Bette Midler, Bill Hader, Nick Kroll. I mean, you have a very strong cast, and they all do a really good job of emulating the source characters, but you can still kind of tell who they are. So it's kind of interesting because they're clearly trying to evoke the original characters. But as you listen, you're like, oh, that is definitely Charlize Theron. It took a little bit to remember that was her, but you get it. So things I didn't like about this film. The first is kind of just the random nature of it. It didn't feel like there was much of a through line. Like, the it's almost like a TV show where you can have an episode where they're like, let's go on a road trip, like a Simpsons episode. They're like, we're gonna buy an RV and go on a road trip, and then they go on a crazy road trip. And it didn't really feel like there was much of a strong story here. And then the locations that they picked were also just very random. I would have liked it to be more tied to kind of the Addams Family creepy lore, like maybe a tour of like the most haunted places in America. And I think they started with that, but then it quickly devolved because they went other places. I think they were originally going to go to Salem, Massachusetts, which would make sense, but they ended up going to Niagara Falls, and then they went to like San Antonio for some reason, and then they ended up in Sausalito, and Sausalito was part of the story, but I feel like they could have written the story to maybe have them go somewhere else. I don't know, Hearst Castle might be an interesting place, or anywhere else that would have a haunted, creepy vibe because it's the Addams Family. And so that just it made this story just feel very random, and like the whole Wednesday not feeling part of her family was just felt weird. Like it didn't really feel like it was established well, and then all of a sudden they introduced this like strange paternity test aspect that again just kind of came out of nowhere. So the whole film just has this story that just doesn't really gel. It feels like maybe a couple different writers were writing this film, and they didn't necessarily communicate. And then also when some things happen, there's very convenient excuses, and I know that can kind of happen to move a story along, but it did feel very weird. Like it felt like, oh, we need this. Oh, this necklace that I randomly have been trying to give you has exactly what you need, and it felt like there wasn't enough of a through line, and it felt like the things that happened just were completely out of left field for some reason. The second thing I didn't love, and this might just be me and kind of how I feel with parenting, but there's all cartoon, but there was a significant amount of violence in this film, and maybe not in like the joking kind of like silly violence, like and it was mostly between Wednesday and Pugsley. Pugsley is her younger brother. Wednesday is antagonistic towards him, but I kind of always thought of it as more of like I'm gonna set this trap for Pugsley and maybe it won't go off, or oh, I'm gonna like put an apple on his head and shoot the apple off, and oh, maybe I'll miss. It was more kind of in a sinister nature. But here, like there was one scene that I just didn't love where she just like straight up suffocated him, like put a pillow on his face and held it down until he stopped moving while she's talking to someone. And I was like, that just didn't seem necessary. And that also seems very violent and also very emulable, right? Like if she's getting a crossbow and shooting that's one thing, or like putting an axe above a door, like that's not something that a kid could see and maybe be like, oh, that would be a dumb thing to do. But snuffing out your sibling with a pillow is something that they might do. There was one where she like pushed Pugsley off of a cliff, like that kind of stuff I just didn't really appreciate, and I just didn't think it was necessary for the film. I thought they could have come up with, again, more creative ways to express that in a more Addams way. And maybe I'm just misremembering the TV show. Maybe it was just more violent than I remember, but I don't remember it being like that. And the last thing, I guess this is all kind of related. It felt like, again, the lack of an overarching story. I think what I meant with this is there wasn't much in here that was like connected to the Addams family. Like you could have made a different cast, like just a different set of characters, and it would have been a similar story. You could have been like, oh, we're going to go on this weird road trip, this weird haunted road trip, and oh, we're going here, oh, we're going there. There wasn't a ton that was like Addams family specific in this movie, and it felt like maybe just, I don't know if it was the writing was off, or there was something that just felt like you could have taken this template, replaced the characters, and it would have been a perfectly fine movie. And I was hoping for maybe something a little bit more Addams specific, and maybe that's also partly because they didn't stay in their house, so some of the things about the house were not there, and the characters, maybe going on vacation meant that they were out of their element. I don't know what it was, but it just didn't really feel like this was an Addams family story. So, and speaking of the story, I'm going to go into the ending a little bit. You can see kind of the random nature of this. So the ultimate journey in this film is to go to Sausalito, because that is where she thinks her biological father lives in Sausalito. He's this kind of like Steve Jobs character. Again, like why a Steve Jobs character? I guess, you have to have some sort of tech magnate, but that felt odd as well. Maybe zombie Steve Jobs. Maybe that would have been more Addams Family. I don't know. But they go to Sausalito looking for this guy Cyrus, who's clearly Steve Jobs. He's like bald. He has a turtleneck on. He's a tech genius. And there, Wednesday and takes a DNA test with Cyrus. She'd previously taken one from Gomez, her father, and it came back negative. So that kind of planted the seed that she's not an Addams. So she takes a DNA test with Cyrus, and lo and behold, it's positive. So I guess she is Cyrus's kid. But there's just some strange, like, Island of Dr. Moreau things happening here. Again, just very random. Cyrus's wife looks and acts like a bird, and his daughter looks and kind of acts like a pig. And there's no real explanation at the start. You're just kind of like wondering what's going on. So there's that. And then eventually Pugsley, feels a kinship with the daughter, and eventually they talk, and he finds out that she is actually a pig. Like, she's a pig that was transformed into a daughter for this event that is happening. So they confront Cyrus. I'll probably call him Steve Jobs a couple times because he really did look like Steve Jobs, but they confront Cyrus, who basically says that he just needed Wednesday's technology, so he lured her here to get the technology. She called it earlier she called it a family secret, so I guess maybe that was the connection. Like, he wanted her to think that she was family so she could tell him her secret DNA technology. And what had happened is, earlier she had merged I guess a very smart squid DNA with Fester's DNA, so he could become smart and do like a Rubik's cube. Again, just very random, and that caused like Fester to start becoming a squid, right? like a super squid, I guess. Again, just like a really strange way to get to this confrontation and this resolution. So he eventually, so after Wednesday confronts him, you find out that he has locked up the Addams family in these like test tubes, and he's gonna make them better by using this DNA technology to change the DNA, kind of like what he did with the wife and the daughter. Although I think maybe it was actually a pig and a chicken. I don't know if he combined them with a chicken or a pig and it was becoming unstable, or they were originally his wife and daughter. I'm not certain on that. Maybe it says it in the movie. I don't remember. But in any event, he locks them up and starts to kind of fill their test tube looking their test tube looking cells with DNA juice. And he originally wanted to make Wednesday like pull the trigger on this, like to make her essentially break with her family and say like, I'm gonna make them essentially make them better, but also show that she's not part of the family. She refused, so he did it anyways, and the vats start to fill with DNA. Side note, they're starting to fill, and I think the justification for why they don't completely transform the Addams family is because they don't fill them up all the way. Like, they only get to like their shins. But Thing is in one of the vats, and it's like way over his head. So Thing should have probably been converted into whatever creature it was trying to create, but they don't address that. I don't know why he wouldn't then be transformed. I don't know what the thing would be. Maybe probably some sort of spider would be the most likely thing, but I don't know. In any event, so Wednesday doesn't want this to happen, and I think if I remember right, she gets Lurch to come in, but Cyrus has his own thug creature thing that comes also, that's been pursuing them during this road trip and also comes to protect him. But then we find out that Lurch and this other goon were at the same mental institution together, so they knew each other. And this was just, again, like a random, like, oh, by the way, we know this, and that's why they're not going to fight each other. They're going to turn on you, Cyrus. And they throw him against, the vats, and they all break, and the Addams family escapes, but Cyrus is covered in this DNA goo. And then he gets converted. Then the DNA goo starts to act on him, and he gets converted into like a chicken, cow, pig creature. It looks kind of like a messed up creature from Greek mythology. Again, very random. Like, now he's this like 12-foot tall chicken thing. And so Lurch and the other goon try to stop him, but he overpowers them. But Fester is more of an octopus now, and so he goes in and fights Steve Jobs character, Steve Jobs chicken, pig, cow character. And they fight, and eventually Fester wins. I don't remember how he won, but eventually Fester overpowers him somehow. And so, but this apparently the transformation takes a toll on Fester. So Fester, he wins, but he's hurt, and it looks like maybe is unstable. His DNA is unstable, or something about the transformation is going to cause him to die. And the only solution would be to refactor his DNA with his original DNA. And you're like, oh, well, how is he going to get that? It's already been changed. Well, luckily, like I mentioned, another random thing. Morticia has been trying to give Wednesday a necklace to show that she is like a member of the Addams that's been passed down throughout the Addams clan. And I guess this necklace has a drop of blood from every Addams who's ever lived. Again, weird. And so she uses this and essentially just like pours out all the blood, so destroys all the history about this device, and then is able to sequence Fester's DNA from this pool of, I don't know how many Addams there would be, but a lot, thousands. I don't know how long their lineage has been, but this pool of many Addams, and get Fester's DNA sequenced in like 2 seconds into a syringe that she then pops into Fester, and he converts back, and everything's fine. And that's it. That's the movie. Also, the pig daughter gets hit with some of the DNA juice, and apparently that fixes her, even though it kind of destroys everyone else. It fixes her, and she becomes a permanent person, and now Pugsley has a friend. And that's the Addams Family movie. Addams Family 2, again, like, I didn't really like this movie that much. It felt a little too random. My kids liked it. They thought that some of the stuff was hilarious. So maybe your kids will like it too. But again, I thought the violence was a little bit too much, and the story was just very random. So, if you want to see it, it's coming out in theaters on October 1st, 2021. So you can check it out then. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.